Hello everyone, my name is Chen Siyuan. Today I will introduce my learning outcome in the Module 1 of the 5-day technical training. In this module, we learn how to use LTM Designer, PCB soldering, 3D drawing, and SPICE simulation. For day 1, we firstly learned how to use LTM Designer to design components like DC converter, capacitor, battery charger, accelerometer, level switch, and battery pack in Footprint Library. Then, we studied how to create their counterparts in Schematic Library, which is shown in the recording. And then, we generated pin maps between the corresponding components. Next, based on the schematic provided, we redraw the circuit on the LTM Designer using the components we just designed or from the libraries given by the professor. And we further studied how to modify the properties of these components. For day 2, we firstly learned how to use LTM Designer to create PCB layout of the swinging rod shift based on the schematic diagram we designed in the first day, the result of which is shown in the recording, during which I learned many useful techniques, such as how to edit properties of multiple components at the same time, how to set up auto-route and use manual routing to solve the problems caused by auto-route, how to modify the design rules of PCB to set the priority of signal routing, change the bias size, or reduce the quantity of certain error reported in PCB information, and lastly, how to conduct copper pouring on the PCB. For day 3, we learned how to use a back-on soldering station to solder the components on the board based on the PCB layout we designed in the second day. We firstly studied the details of using soldering iron and solder, such as how to create small solder mountains, how to protect the soldering header from oxidization, and how to remove the oxides on the header. Then, we started to practice soldering components like resistors and LEDs by ourselves. I also learned how to use desktop magnifier and solder paste to solder small components such as SMD, during which I further understood how to remove unneeded solder using the solder paste. For day 4, we continued on studying and practicing soldering. To be more specific, I learned how to use solder sucker to remove the solder on the PCB, how to solder multiple pins by increasing the contact areas between the soldering header and the pins, how to manage the soldering order to avoid obstacles caused by the blocking of soldered components. After finishing the soldering, I learned how to conduct troubleshooting using the original schematic, and how to reprogram the swinging rod shift using Thorny to present new LED switch model. For day 5, we firstly studied how to design 3D models using the functions provided in Design Spark, like drawing figures, changing views, and using Pool to create, modify, or remove 3D figures. Then, we learned how to use LT-SPICE to create circuits with transistors, as well as how to stimulate the circuit and plot the measured data in different conditions. And that's all for the Module 1 of technical training. I indeed learned a lot of useful skills, especially about the PCB design and soldering. Thank you for your watching.